wrestler. We made a film about a guy who has all the creature comforts, all the material.
Superfly has existed in that rare category of cinema where the image on screen feels so complete, so confident, so fully formed that most people never stop to question how it came together in the first place. It looks intentional, it feels deliberate, it moves with a kind of smooth, hypnotic rhythm that makes you assume everything was planned that way from the beginning. But when you step behind the surface, when you start pulling at the edges of how this film was actually made, you realize very quickly that what looks like precision was often improvisation. What feels like vision was sometimes survival. And what appears effortless was built under pressure that never really let up. The truth is, this wasn't just a film being created, it was a film being forced into existence by people who didn't have the luxury of doing things the conventional way. At the center of it all was Gordon Parks Jr., a young director carrying both the weight of expectation and the reality of limitation at the same time. He wasn't stepping into a system that was ready to support him. He was stepping into a space where he had to build that support as he went, often in ways that blurred the line between creativity and risk. The script he received, written by Philip Fenty, wasn't a finished blueprint. It was incomplete, barely enough to justify a full-length film. And yet, instead of waiting for something more polished, more complete, Parks Jr. had to move forward with what he had. That meant stretching moments, extending scenes, allowing silence and atmosphere to carry weight that dialogue normally would. The long shots of Harlem streets, the slow pacing, the almost dreamlike movement of the camera, those weren't just stylistic choices. They were solutions to a problem that couldn't be solved any other way. And Harlem itself wasn't just a setting, it was a participant in the film. This wasn't a controlled environment where every detail could be adjusted to fit a director's vision. This was a real place with real people, real energy, and real unpredictability. Filming there meant adapting constantly, reacting to what was happening in real time, and sometimes making decisions that wouldn't be considered acceptable in a more traditional production. The stories about tapping into city electricity, about filming without permits, about moving quickly to avoid interference, all of that speaks to a kind of filmmaking that wasn't just independent, it was almost defiant. It existed outside the system because it had no other option. At the same time, the authenticity that people associate with the film didn't come from careful research or secondhand observation, it came from proximity. People involved in the production understood the world they were portraying, not as an abstract idea, but as something they had seen, lived, or been close to. That's why elements like the wardrobe, the cars, the environment itself feel so grounded. The famous Cadillac wasn't designed to represent a lifestyle, it already existed as part of that lifestyle. The clothing wasn't imagined to fit a character, it reflected how people actually dressed in that moment. And when individuals from that world appeared on screen, even briefly, it added a layer of reality that can't be replicated through performance alone. But while the film was building this sense of authenticity visually, something very different was happening musically. Curtis Mayfield approached the project with a perspective that didn't fully align with what was being shown on screen. Where the film presented a certain kind of lifestyle with style and confidence, Mayfield saw something else underneath it. He saw consequences, he saw cycles, he saw the cost of choices that might look appealing from a distance. And instead of reinforcing the film's surface message, he used his music to question it. The songs didn't just accompany the scenes, they commented on them, sometimes subtly, sometimes directly, creating a tension between what you were seeing and what you were hearing. That tension became one of the defining features of the film, even if many viewers didn't consciously recognize it. It created a dual experience, where the visuals suggested one interpretation, while the music suggested another. And in many ways, that contradiction is what gave the film its depth. It wasn't just telling a story, it was presenting multiple perspectives on that story at the same time. For Ron O'Neal, that complexity came with a different kind of challenge. As a trained actor, someone who approached his work with a certain level of seriousness and intention, He understood the difference between portraying a character and being associated with that character. But once the film was released, that distinction became harder to maintain. The image of Youngblood Priest was so strong, so recognizable, that it started to overshadow the person behind it. Audiences didn't always see the performance, they saw the character. And that shift had consequences that extended far beyond the film itself. Because in Hollywood, perception often shapes opportunity. The roles that followed didn't reflect the full range of what O'Neill could do. They reflected what people believed he represented. And once that perception takes hold, it can be difficult to change. It creates a kind of cycle where each new role reinforces the last, gradually narrowing the possibilities instead of expanding them. Meanwhile, the film itself continued to grow in influence. What started as a low-budget production with limited resources became something much larger over time. It entered conversations about culture, about representation, about the way stories are told and who gets to tell them. It also became a point of controversy, particularly among organizations that saw it as reinforcing harmful narratives rather than challenging them. That reaction wasn't just about the film itself, it was about the broader context in which it existed, a time when media representation carried significant weight and impact. And yet, despite that criticism, or perhaps partly because of it, the film endured. It became part of a larger conversation about cinema, about music, about style. The soundtrack achieved a level of success that extended beyond the film itself, reaching audiences who might never have seen the movie itself. The fashion influenced trends that continued long after the film's release. The imagery became iconic, referenced and reinterpreted in different contexts over the years. What makes all of this particularly interesting is how much of it was unplanned. The elements that people now point to as defining features, the pacing, the atmosphere, the authenticity, the tension between image and music, were not always the result of a clear, unified vision. They were often the result of necessity, of individuals making decisions in the moment based on what was available to them. And yet, those decisions came together in a way that feels cohesive when viewed as a whole. It's a reminder that creativity doesn't always follow a straight line. It doesn't always emerge from ideal conditions or complete preparation. Sometimes it comes from working within limitations, from finding ways to move forward even when the path isn't fully clear. And in those situations, the final result can carry a kind of energy that's difficult to replicate under more controlled circumstances. Looking back now, decades later, it's easier to see the film in its full context, not just as a piece of entertainment, but as a product of its time, shaped by the conditions in which it was made. It reflects the challenges, the opportunities, and the contradictions of that moment, capturing something that feels both specific and universal at the same time. And that's why it continues to be studied, discussed, and revisited, not because it answers every question, but because it raises them, about storytelling, about representation, about the relationship between art and reality. Questions that don't have simple answers, but that remain relevant as long as people continue to engage with the film. In the end, what you see on screen is only part of the story. Behind every frame, every scene, every choice, there's a process that shaped it in ways that aren't immediately visible. And when you take the time to explore that process, to understand the context in which something was created, it changes the way you experience it. It adds depth, it adds complexity. It turns something familiar into something new again. So when you think about Superfly now, it's not just about the character, the style, or the story being told. It's about everything that went into making it possible. The risks, the compromises, the decisions, and the people who made them. All of it existing just beneath the surface, waiting to be seen by anyone willing to look a little closer.